Episode of the Liberator podcast. We're here with Russell Hunter. I'm here with Russell Hunter and James Silberman. I'm Sam Riley. And we're going to be talking about a topic that we have been teasing for a long time and have not done it. Yep. Abortion is murder, and everybody knows it.
Yeah, we put this on all our gear, and it's like on a bumper sticker. It's a quadful. It's a drop card. It's a new sign. We say it all the time, and I think it's been like up on the whiteboard, like episode idea, abortion is murder, everybody knows it.
Yeah.
And we've just never done that episode, but our good buddy, Scott Klusendorf, in his recent post has inspired us. This episode needs to be made.
Yeah. Yeah. If you've been following our TikTok recently, you've probably seen a difference in the way that we engage pro-aborts than the way that pro-lifers engage pro-aborts. And I think the essential difference there is we do not believe what they say. Yeah. We don't believe that they believe that it's not murder.
Yeah. To restate it, we believe that everybody knows abortion is murder. And so when you're out there talking to them about abortion and they come up and they say stuff, you shouldn't pretend like abortion isn't murder. Like, I'm going to try to find some common ground with this person and pretend like I believe them that abortion is healthcare, and then like move the conversation along and try to gain some ground. It's like, no, abortion is murder. Everybody knows it. And you're on the street talking to someone who's literally advocating for murdering the most innocent among us. Act like it.
Yep. And in many cases, they won't even deny that they know that's what it is.
Yeah.
And we've seen articles, and we'll get into the different materials, some of which is in this quadfold, in which they just outright admit, yes, I know it's murder, and I don't care. I support it anyways.
Yep. Yeah. If I had $100 for every time someone on the street said, yeah, it's murder, it's okay, I'd be able to give you guys raises.
Yeah.
Which I
and then
do
there's
anyway.
the people, I've talked to some like kids out of high school before that have never even heard the word before. So that there's that sort of person, but when you describe it to them, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's murder." So there's no one honestly believes that abortion is not murder.
Yeah.
They suppress the truth. They hold it down.
Yeah. So yeah, it's suppressing the truth and unrighteousness to justify something that you've done. But if you're out there on the street with an image of a murdered child and a child walks by and they like see it, and then they wonder why their parents are like for it. They're like, why are my parents for murder? Because it's like, we all know, like, I mean, it's a mutilated body of another human being, murder. Even whenever you don't have the remains, there was a human being there, and you can call it terminating a pregnancy, but you terminated the human. What is terminating a human? Murder. Everybody knows this.
Yeah.
It takes indoctrination and mental gymnastics to make it something else. That, it's like a, hate crime against babies in the womb.
Right.
Yep.
And so we're going to get into kind of all that a bit more after we talk about kind of the impetus for this episode, which, as Russell mentioned, is Mr. Scott Klusendorf, who tweeted recently. He said, "Defenders of abortion do not hate babies, and pro-lifers do not hate women. Instead, we are simply divided on a fundamental question: is the unborn a member of the human family?"
This is such a bad tweet. This is like Tim Keller bad tweet level. This is like a Tim Keller level. So immediately cringy and bad. And I just like, why is he writing this? Who is he appealing to? Does he believe what he's saying? If he does believe what he's saying, why does anyone listen to this guy? And when James brought this tweet to my attention, I was just kind of like, defenders of abortion do not hate babies.
Yeah.
Does Klusendorf not believe that people are evil? Does Klusendorf not believe that anyone sins? Does anyone hate anyone? Like, this is just so far awry of biblical truth and understanding of the state of humanity that I'm kind of like, why does this even have likes? Yeah. Did it have likes? I haven't seen. This is a tweet. Did people like? Oh, Klusendorf said it.
I'm sure there were a handful. I don't remember how many. But
I mean, you should lose followers on your account for saying something, because someone should just be like, this is dumb.
And this is just so obvious at this point too, because if you look into pop culture at all, if you watch any show, or if you talk to any people on college campus, they talk about, oh, what if I accidentally get pregnant? Or what if I accidentally get a girl pregnant? Or if it's in a show and somebody gets pregnant, that's like the worst thing that's ever happened to anybody. Like, people in this culture hate babies. They don't want to get pregnant. They don't want children. They don't like babies. Yeah. And so, like, for him to say defenders of abortion do not hate babies, how can you kill somebody without hating them? Like that the reason Jesus says when you hate your brother, you murder them in your heart. Murder entails hatred for them.
Yeah.
You can't not hate somebody and kill them.
That's what I'm saying. There's like no biblical understanding about humans in this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as we'll get into, again, people know when life begins. People graduate 6th grade biology. They know all this stuff. But for Scott Klusendorf to say something like this, like, we go after Klusendorf and the things that he writes quite a bit, because
he goes after us.
And he goes after us. Exactly. Because for the most part, most often, because he's defending incrementalism and saying immediatism, abolitionism is wrong. That's most of what we criticize Klusendorf's different writings for. Mm-hmm. However, in this case, this is exactly what Klusendorf is supposed to be doing. He's not primarily a political activist or a political strategist. That's not his bread and butter. His bread and butter is doing debates against abortion supporters, against
pro-choice arguments.
Exactly. He does formal debates against ACLU lawyers. He trains churches and Christian schools how to formulate pro-life arguments and all that sort of stuff. So his bread and butter is responding to abortion supporting arguments. That's what his organization does. That's what he has dedicated his life to doing. And with this tweet, he is showing he doesn't even understand the arguments he needs to be refuting.
Yeah.
Like all he does, not all he does, but what he does in his profession is respond to pro-abortion arguments, and he doesn't even know what they are.
Well, it's almost as if he hasn't even engaged pro-abortion people.
Yeah.
Because at first I was like, wait, who is this guy talking to? Maybe he's never actually engaging, except for as a debate or a training. Like, has he never gone on a college campus and talked to people?
He has, and that's the crazy part.
I know. So that's what I'm wondering. Did he somehow not talk to any of the thousands and thousands of people we've talked to that will straight up they'll sometimes tell you, I hate babies.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you've never run into that?
It could be the case that Klusendorf has just been so long since he's been on a college campus. There are those who are frequently on college campuses. Like, a lot of people who work for Created Equal, they go and they have those conversations. They see people who are going and murdering their babies often. Whereas, Klusendorf's more of an ivory tower type guy who he doesn't even want to engage us very much. Even when it's an intellectual argument that he should respond to, he doesn't want to directly talk to us.
Picks and chooses what he hears.
Yeah.
Plus, the people he's talking to, like you're saying, they're probably guarded. Like, they're not going to stand up on a stage and say, well, I hate babies, that's why I murdered them.
Yeah, or I admit that it's murder, and that's okay that it's murder. Yeah, I think Scott Klusendorf's problem is he makes this sort of an intellectual exercise, and it becomes less real to him. It's more like, oh, this is just something that we debate, and this is something that I need to persuade people of. And I
he's not talking to actual people.
Yeah, well, I think he actually thinks it's wrong and everything. I think he doesn't like abortion. He hates abortion or whatever. But I think he's allowed it to become this intellectual exercise in his mind, disconnecting it from the reality that we're killing human beings en masse. And so since he doesn't have that connected view, seeing them as neighbors, it's very easy to just think people are honestly deceived about it.
And
they're not.
And there's a disconnect with when you're not out there doing it as like part of being an ambassador of Christ. It's like, this is an evangelical pursuit. The people I'm talking to are either in rebellion to God or they're followers of Christ. And so I'm always thinking about abortion as sin, the answer being the gospel.
Yeah.
And I'm always trying to wonder, why is this person in the place where they're either murdering a child or advocating other people to murder a child, well, because of sin. Because sin has darkened their mind, their hearts, their nature is exceedingly violent and wicked and selfish to the point of murdering other people because of who they are, and they're not in Christ. And that's, I think that's the sort of frame, the mindset of an abolitionist, but that is not the mindset of a pro-lifer or a ivory tower pro-life apologist who's training people to like have some kind of intellectual argument about the status or nature of the unborn. It's a total different focus.
Yeah.
And I think if your focus is, I am talking to someone who's lost about abortion, you're naturally thinking this person hates, they hate evil, or they hate good and they love evil because that's what the Bible says about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. They hate God and they love death.
Yeah.
That's what the Bible
Those
says.
who hate God love death.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those who love death hate God.
And that sort of is the general Christian apologetics problem too, with a lot of sort of evidentialists in the way that they go about things. They make it just an intellectual exercise as opposed to this person is a sinner, this person hates God, the whole man is affected by it. Their mind, their heart, their soul, everything about them is affected by sin. And so Klusendorf, I think he just makes it a matter of just persuasion. It's not a matter of the heart. Like their heart is wicked. They don't want to love their preborn neighbors because they don't love God.
Yeah.
Jesus said, or it says in the Bible, those who hate me love death. You can't hate your brother and love God at the same time. That's their problem. They're not going to love their neighbor until they love their God. And if they don't love their God, they're not going to love their neighbor. It's just not going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. And just to put a little bow on this section before we move on to the next section where we'll show some examples of people who are fully admitting they know abortion's murder. Again, Klusendorf, he goes to churches and schools and trains people, and he doesn't even know what the problem is, right? And the pro-life apologists, I'm sure that many others would agree with what Klusendorf has said here. And again, they're not addressing this theologically, and if you're not addressing it theologically, you're not addressing it at all, because the problem is theological, the problem is spiritual, the problem is the heart, the problem is sin. And Klusendorf is saying, no, the problem is not sin. It's not hatred of children. It's not hatred for the image of God in preborn children. No, the problem is they just don't know that this is a human being.
Yeah, it's an intellectual debate that you can win, which is the platform of all his material. And it breaks my heart that he thinks that we don't like him and therefore have this view about him. No, it's like we think he's wrong on this view. It doesn't matter if we like him or not. We think he's wrong on this view, that there's good reasons that he's wrong, and that we want to provide reasons for a different view. And that is, I mean, the whole like abortion is murder, everyone's going to be, and everybody knows it. He's acting like people don't know abortion's murder and need to be persuaded. And at the moment that you show them this is murder, which I actually don't even know if he thinks that you're supposed to be showing him it's murder. He may be in the class of it's killing or something like that. But the moment that
he is. Yeah, he says it's killing, not murder.
It's not murder because the law textbooks don't say it's murder type thing from Klusendorf. But the moment that you persuade them that it's like killing or something like that, then you win, and you've changed their mind. Like you've argued them to the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
Where we're basically saying, they have the truth. It's written on their hearts. They have knowledge of it. They believe in it. They believe in justice. It's just all ingrained in them as an image bearer of God, and that they're suppressing the truth in unrighteousness. So they're suppressing it because they want to do unrighteousness. And why do they want to do unrighteousness? Because what the Bible says, men love darkness.
Yep.
And darkness is hate. I mean, I don't want to quote Yoda here, but Yoda gets it, Hate leads to the dark side, and people are on the dark side. It's not the other way around. Yeah. And so that everybody knows it is I think the more significant part of this slogan that we have, and it's the part that he's denying.
Yeah. Right. And again, even Klusendorf knows that he should not believe Klusendorf on this either when he says that we're just divided on the fundamental question of, is the unborn a member of the human family? That he knows pro-aborts, they'll say bodily autonomy. They'll make the argument that they're a person, they're a human, whatever, and they'll say you should be able to kill your baby anyways. Yeah. And he has frequent debates with people who do the whole Judith Jarvis Thompson violinist argument. So he knows this is false.
Yeah, he knows that this doesn't hold for everyone.
Yeah.
For sure, because he knows that some defenders of abortion do hate babies. He knows that. He works in the sort of like pro-life apologetics field. He knows it. Like in our little quadfold thing here, abortion kills the life of a baby after it has begun. Planned Parenthood pamphlet, 1963. Yep. I bet you $1 billion Scott Klusendorf seen that. Yeah. Abortion is a form of killing that we need to be able to defend. Sophie Lewis, pro-abortion author. Scott Klusendorf seen that. Yeah. Given that we actually see the fetus the same way, and given that we might actually both agree there's violence in an abortion, let's just give them all. It's violence, it's a person, it's killing. Let's just give them all that. Lisa Harris, abortionist, University of Michigan professor. Scott Klusendorf has seen that. Yeah. He knows that people on the other side know abortion is murder, know that it is evil, and say that it's something they want to do. He knows that, and yet he's going to write this tweet.
Yeah.
Why? Because I think he's playing to some kind of crowd or idea. I don't know. I mean, but I think it's a good point that he knows himself that everybody knows abortion is murder. And he knows it also without being a presuppositionalist. He knows it evidentially. He knows evidentially that the abortionists know it's murder and do it anyway. Mm-hmm. Why?
Yeah.
They love themselves more than their own children.
Yeah. So let's go back for a second to that quote from Lisa Harris, who is an abortionist at Planned Parenthood in Michigan and a professor at the University of Michigan. And so this was a quote that was actually in the David Daleiden tapes that went on YouTube a few years ago. And she is at a abortion conference. I think it was the National Abortion Federation was putting on a conference, and she was on a panel. And she's asked basically about responding to anti-abortion arguments. And her response, again, given that we actually see the fetus the same way as those who oppose abortion, and given that we might actually both agree with the anti-abortion people that there's violence in an abortion, let's just give them all it's violence, it's a person, it's killing. Let's just give them all that. Let's concede that this is a person we're talking about, and that this is a violent killing of that person. Let's concede that.
Yep.
Right? This is what they're teaching at National Abortion Federation conferences.
Yeah, they're just being honest with their actual... I mean, they're basically admitting that they know what it is, but they're willing to do it.
And so what does a person like this and the many, many, many other pro-aborts who believe the way that she does, or who have learned to believe that from her and people like her, what do those people need to hear? Do they need to hear, oh, we're just in disagreement about the fundamental nature of the preborn child? Like, what is that going to do for Lisa Harris? What does Scott Klusendorf's argument do for the primary pro-abortion argument? Nothing. It's absurd that he would even approach it this way, because that person doesn't care, right? They know exactly what the preborn is, and they do not care. What they need is someone to address them where they're actually at, which is in a state of spiritual blindness, in a state of suppressing the truth that they know that this is that they're not even suppressing that it's a person and it's killing and it's murder, but they are suppressing that that's wrong.
Yeah,
they know it's wrong.
And
it's a spiritual problem.
Lest anyone think this is just sort of a behind-the-scenes quote, and it is. This is a quote taken from somewhere where she was not trying to speak publicly. Yeah. But this is a woman who's written articles saying that her baby in the womb at 22 weeks kicked her while she was ripping off the limbs of a baby at 22 weeks. Like she writes that kind of thing publicly for people to go and read and find. And so this Lisa Harris is not all that different from everyday pro-aborts. She's just a lot more honest. Yeah. And if Klusendorf knows about this stuff, he's seen these articles, he's read these articles. I know he's very familiar with this content. He's just not being honest here. Straight up, Scott, you're not being honest. There's no way that you can actually believe what you're saying in this quote.
He's appealing to his pro-life supporters, viewers, funders, whatever. He's appealing to them because he's repeating back to them the thing that pro-lifers want to believe, and that is that all people getting abortions, all women are victims, and that they don't know what they're doing, which is
they just had more information.
Yeah, if they just had more information, and we're the ones who give them information, buy us our ultrasound trucks and buy our videos and learn our stuff. Right. And so he's actually just appealing to his audience, but he's not telling the truth. What's funny is, or not funny, what's wicked is Lisa Harris, she's actually knows that the vast majority of people getting abortions and the vast majority of people on the planet They know what it is. They know it's killing. And she's just being honest and like, hey, let's just fess up. This is something people want. Mm-hmm. So let's give it to them, and let's not be euphemistic. Let's unapologetically, it is violence being done to a preborn person.
And here's an important point there.
Because she knows they'll still want it.
How could someone admit that? Like, how could pro-aborts possibly be in a place where they're straight up admitting, yes, this is a person and we're violently killing them? Like, the only reason, like rhetorically, strategically, the only reason that you would admit something that insane and crazy and evil that undermines your position, the only reason to admit that publicly is because you know we can't deny it anymore. It's so obvious, everybody knows it.
And they're okay with it.
And they're okay with it. So let's not even deny, let's not even try to hide the fact, because it's obvious. And so the abolitionists are saying abortion's murder and everybody knows it. The pro-aborts, the abortion performers and supporters are saying abortion is the violent killing of a human person and everybody knows it.
Yeah.
But then you have the pro-lifers off in their own bubble, not acknowledging reality, denying reality completely, saying, no, it's just a disagreement about whether or not there's a human being there in the womb.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
Well, what's funny on top of all this is that Scott Klusendorf thinks that we're bad faith actors. But he's debated with enough pro-aborts to know that they do not care what lie they have to sell in order to justify abortion. You'll talk to them, they'll jump from one argument to the next. They do not care which argument they use. You can knock down 100 arguments, and they will continue to cycle through them over and over and over again because they're not honest. Like, they're not good faith actors, but Scott treats them like they are, and he treats us like we aren't.
Yeah, to get back to your comment about your comment about TikTok and the people and the way our approach on TikTok and just our approach out on the street is we're talking to people and you see that same thing, like on the street level, like somebody, like a lot of like recent interactions, like somebody straight up begins the kind of interaction saying that they believe abortion should be legal on demand for whatever reason up to 9 months. And they're unapologetic. This is like what makes women free and equal and all this kind of stuff. But then they'll argue from like the 12-year-old who's raped or the ectopic pregnancy that's rupturing a tube, or they'll argue from all these things. And you're just kind of like, why are you arguing that abortion's okay because of this extreme thing? You think it's okay just because. And when you press them on that, they will basically be like, yeah, it's okay. Why? Because I don't want a baby. And so it's like that, okay, that's the real reason. You don't want a baby. And to the point of not wanting a baby, you will have them murdered. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's your view. And if you can get someone on the street to that, a lot of them will be like, yep, and you should go to hell, and like flip you off and run off. Yeah. You've uncovered all of their justifications, all their suppression of the truth, and got them to admit who they are and the state of their hearts. Yeah. And that is your job as a Christian, to be able to tell them your heart is wicked and deceitful above all things, and you're in rebellion to God. Turn to him. Yeah. But this whole like, we're divided on a fundamental question of, is the unborn a member of the human family? I know we want to move on from that, but I just think that it is so, I would understand if somebody like at your church who's never engaged with abortion, never talked to anyone, but has like read a pro-life pamphlet somewhere, might think this somehow. Like, you know, they might have a really rosy view of humans, that humans aren't murderous and all this kind of stuff. They have an unbiblical view of humans, but they kind of think, yeah, this is just an educational thing. Mm-hmm. But Scott Klusendorf, he's been doing this.
He has to know.
He has to know. Like, he knows all these quotes. He's seen all this footage. Yeah. And he's not doing this.
Well, not only has it been revealed to Scott in nature, in just reality, like God has revealed it to Scott that people know that abortion is murder, and he knows that abortion is murder just intrinsically. But also as a Christian, you've got the Bible that is God's special revelation to us that tells us about his world that he created and about the problem with humanity. And Romans 1 says this, it says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. So they're in this state of denial of God. They're suppressing the truth. And what comes out of that? For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man, and birds, and animals, and creeping things. Therefore God gave them up to lusts of their heart, to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshiped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. So they are given up to this murderous intent, to this debauched, evil impurity, and it's because they're denial of God. And that is not a denial where they're successful in getting rid of the information of the knowledge. They're holding that knowledge down actively. If Scott would just study that and understand that, I don't think that he could come away with, people just, they don't know.
Well, let's be
they don't hate babies.
Since we're being loving enough to tell Scott the truth over and over and over again, Scott's also read Romans 1 hundreds of times and sat in Romans 1 sermons, I'm sure, many times. And so it's like that passage is not, I bet you if you were asking Scott on some other thing where this wasn't coming up, he would affirm it. Yeah. Men love darkness, suppress the truth and unrighteousness. It's just when he's pro-life apologist guy on Twitter, he says this kind of stuff. But Romans 1, before we leave the passage, at the end of that chapter, Romans 1:32, this is Paul talking about the people who've suppressed the truth and unrighteousness. He ends that chapter saying, though they know God's righteous decrees that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them.
Yeah.
That is talking about the pro-abort.
And the practice them is envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness, gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Those are the things that it's talking about when it's saying the things that they know. Like
defenders of abortion do not hate babies.
Yeah.
That whole list: maliciousness, strife, murder, and then Paul says these people do these things. They know what they're doing, and not only do they do them, they give approval to other people who do them. It's literally defenders of abortion among everyone else, but defenders of abortion. So let's go a biblical fix for Klusendorf's tweet. Defenders of abortion hate babies. Fixed it. Pro-lifers do not hate women. Okay. We are divided on whether or not, babies should be hated to death. It is not about a fundamental question of, is the unborn a member of the human family? It is not about that. That is part of it, a small part of it, and it's good to have that stuff, to know that stuff, but it is not the reason that people are murdering their babies thousands of times a day.
Yeah. We are divided to kind of fix the last sentence there. Instead, we are divided on two fundamental questions. Is the unborn made in the image of God, meaning humans have an intrinsic value, and is murder always wrong? Yeah. Those are the dividing questions. Is murder always wrong? And do humans have intrinsic value because they're made in the image of God? Those are the fundamental questions that need addressed. And so we're not just saying the way Scott does it is wrong, but we're also saying here's the way. Address the problem as the actual problem exists.
Yeah.
The fact that people know it's murder, they know it's the killing of a human being, they just don't care because they don't think that human being is made in the image of God and has intrinsic value, and therefore the killing's okay.
Yeah, and it's not a matter of persuasion either. It's like divided on those questions. Yeah, but they know. Like, they already know that they're image bearers of God. They know that they're murdering them. It's not a matter of, I just need to be really persuasive and a super good pro-life apologist or whatever. They already know. The thing that's going to change their heart is laying their sin out before them and saying, you are a sinner, you need grace, and God actually rescuing them. That's what needs to happen. It's not, I persuaded this person and they changed their mind and now they love their preborn child.
Yeah.
That's not how it happens. It's somebody needs a new heart. God needs to put a new heart in that person, and they need to change.
Yeah. And there is like a place, because they kind of have the law written on their hearts, and there's just so much revealed in nature that they know that sort of like standing up and saying, yeah, the unborn is valuable and it's killing and it's okay. They know that that doesn't sell well. So that's why you get all these kind of arguments and euphemisms and so on and so forth. And so we're not saying there isn't a place to destroy arguments or speculations raised up against the knowledge of God. There is a place for that stuff. But at base, you can't presuppose that the person is only wrong because of knowledge. What you presuppose is that the person is wrong because they suppress the truth and unrighteousness because they're at odds with God.
Yeah.
You presuppose that, and then, as you know, my father said, Francis Schaeffer said, he helped raise me from his books. Francis Schaeffer would talk about taking the roof off, like that there is a place where like you can sort of expose somebody, like somebody somewhere is saying something, and you can deal with their argument and persuade them that they're lying. Like you can call them out. Yeah. Like it's a murder and it's a human being and what you're doing and that it's wrong, and you can get them to that place. And then whenever they admit it and they see it, then you can share the gospel. And, the Holy Spirit can do things there.
Right.
Yeah. But like if you presuppose that the only issue is that they need to be persuaded, you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. And just on that presuppositionalism, as a lot of abolitionists are very presuppositional in the way that we go about opposing abortion. And I think there's a reason for that, but of course there are other abolitionists that are evidentialist or something like that, but we're not knocking them or anything. But yeah, no, as far as treating abortion like murder presuppositionally and addressing the pro-aborts that way, you'll see a vast difference in just apologetic approaches. When you see an abolitionist, you see Russell Hunter out there talking to people, it's more, he's on the attack. He's saying, you know that this is murder. You just say you want to kill poor people or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just assuming, yes, these are people you're talking about. It's assuming you're just saying, let's kill poor people. And so state it like that. Don't say, well, it's really whether they're people. Why do you say they're not people? And that sort of thing. Just taking this posture of like, let's just debate this thing out instead of, no, you're evil. You know God, you hate your neighbors, you should repent. And you can say that in a gentle way. I'm not saying you have to say it in a very aggressive way or anything like that. But people should know when they talk to you that they're fully aware that they're killing babies.
They shouldn't walk away thinking, well, that guy thinks that I just don't understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm safe. I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. If they walk away going, you know what?
I have an excuse now.
Yeah, they're like, yeah.
Contrary to Romans 1. That guy thinks that I didn't know.
Yeah, I fooled him. I can fool myself. I can fool God. Mm-hmm. But it's like that person walks away going, well, that person just straight up said that I was murder and my heart was full of murder.
Yeah.
You've told them something about themselves that is true.
Yeah.
And the truth of that thing does resonate. Mm-hmm. Even in their little fallen heart, it resonates.
Yeah, deep down there's a place where they know that it's wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because they're suppressing it.
And they've got called onto the carpet for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that sets them up for them and God and, woe is me, what do I do to be saved sort of situation. Mm-hmm. The other one, you could have this big old, I'm not going to say names, but I've seen, people like talk for like 30 minutes on the street with somebody and they're like going through SLED.
Yeah.
And like at the end of that thing, it's like the person's like, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Size, level, environment, like they deserved it. I want to be able to go out and do something next Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like all that SLED stuff that you just did with that person.
Right.
At the end of the day, they said, I am king or I am queen and I will do what I want with my body and I will murder people to have the life I want.
Yeah.
It's just like, you just wasted all this time.
Yeah.
Get to it,
Yeah.
Oh, there's a good example of that with the guy that we were talking to at the Norman Art Walk recently. He was walking by and he's like, yeah, pro-abortion. And you, I think you had talked to this lady and this man before, and you were saying something along the lines of, I want to let you know that there's forgiveness at the cross for abortion. I think you had like a hunch that they were guilty of it. And this guy says, I'm already forgiven. And our response wasn't, okay, well, let's talk about that or something. It was, no, you're not. You're not. If you think that you can hate your neighbor and you love God, it just is not the case. You do not have a new heart. Yeah. You are not acting like a Christian. If you were actually a Christian, you would love your neighbors. Yeah. You would not hate your neighbors and say, yeah, let's woohoo, kill them. You wouldn't be doing that walking down the street if you were actually forgiven.
And that guy is saying that particular thing that you're saying is sin wasn't sin. Mm-hmm. So if he's saying this wasn't sin, he hasn't laid it at the foot of the cross. Mm-hmm. He hasn't. He stood before God, and whatever thing he did, and whatever Joel Osteen type church that he went to get saved or be forgiven or whatever, he held that back. Mm-hmm. Like he wasn't confessing his sin before God. He was doing some kind of ritual in his mind to make him feel like he had been whatever. Mm-hmm. Get out of hell card or whatever he's done. Yeah. But whenever he stands before God, it's not going to be like, I don't see your abortions. I don't see your lies, your lust, your murder. I don't see any of that. I see my son. That person's going to be standing there saying like, this abortion is mine. I did this and it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a forgiven person. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people say you can't judge who is and isn't saved. Well, someone who's running around saying they murdered their baby and that God doesn't need to forgive them for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's get to a few examples of that. There's different abolitionists at abortion mills around the country, and they wear GoPros and stuff, and so we actually can see these men and women who are walking into these abortion clinics. There's a YouTube channel, great channel called Not a Victim. You guys should go subscribe to that if you're not already. But let's watch a few videos of people who are outright saying these sorts of things, like the guy that you interacted with at the R-Walk.
Jesus Christ can set you free.
I wanted to kill my fucking child because of the circumstances that I was going to bring him into this world under, then I got the right to do that.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
It's my child, right?
God doesn't give you consent to murder. God created you. He doesn't give you consent to murder your baby. Information? Some help? You're not. You're going into a place that murders babies.
I'm already murdered.
You already murdered?
Yep.
Is there any remorse?
No.
None at all?
No.
Miss, turn to Christ. Let me help you.
Help me what?
With your baby.
Oh, no.
Miss, this is a place that's murdering children. You know that?
I know. Shit.
Are you about to murder yours?
Yes, I am.
Why? Place that murders babies.
It's okay that they're here.
She's helping you to murder your baby.
Thank you, honey.
Is that evidentiary enough for you?
Pretty clear.
Yeah. So we know the kind of intelligentsia, the pro-abortion thought leaders, right? We've heard from them, their articles, their conferences, right? They fully admit it. And the women walking into abortion clinics, a lot of them, probably the majority of them, fully admit what they're doing. They all know, but most of them will outright admit it.
Yeah. And think about this too. Like, just because they call them not a human, just because they call them fetus or blob of tissue or whatever, every single act of injustice that has ever taken place, like whether it's the Nazi Holocaust, whether it was chattel slavery, even the term chattel slavery, like calling people animals, cattle.
Yeah.
In the Holocaust, they called them vermin. Like, none of them were convinced that Jews were not people. None of them were convinced that blacks were not their brothers. Yeah. None of them. All of them knew this is enslaving my neighbor. And you know that today, you pro-life apologists, you are fully aware the people who did all those racist, horrible atrocities in history, they knew that they were atrocities. That's why they were pulled up in front of tribunals to stand trial for what they did and the commands that they obeyed, because they knew, and there was a higher standard, and they were supposed to treat their neighbors as their neighbors, and they didn't do it. Yeah. So you cannot deny that abortion is doing the same thing. If you think that the preborn are people, just apply what you already do with slavery and with the Holocaust and with the Rwanda genocide, whatever it is, apply it to abortion, because I think there's a problem with you not viewing your neighbors as people, as human beings. Like, you are de-ranking them in your mind as someone lesser than, and going along with the pro-aborts in that because you don't want to actually treat them the way that you would treat your black brothers and sisters back in the day, or your Jewish neighbors back in the day. I think you know full well that standard just does not hold up when you look at any historical example.
And whenever you bring up when you address like the pro-life apologist or the sort of pro-life intellectual and what they know, I think because they too are not necessarily treating the unborn person like an equal human being made in the image of God that deserves equal protection, equal justice, like the equal criminalization of the murder of them.
Yeah.
They are also themselves kind of trying to justify like why they aren't doing what they ought to do for them. I mean, I know it's a little meta or something, but I think that whenever a guy like Scott Klusendorf, who has been a big time advocate of incrementalism, regulationism, submission to unconstitutional court decrees, all of this stuff, he knows he has not done for the unborn child what he would want done for himself. Mm-hmm. So maybe if we can make this, there's just this sort of intellectual problem, like that we're not yet to, that we don't understand fully. It can kind of like blunt this, because if it's sort of a no, our culture, our cities, our states, our country is wicked and evil and at odds with God, what we need is repentance, abolition, criminalization, and a total change here, and we need to be prophets. Mm-hmm. If that's the real problem and the real answer is the gospel of the kingdom of Jesus Christ, then his whole project is kind of off. Mm-hmm. And so I think he's still trying to defend that sort of pro-life apologist, that defender of life, answering pro-choice arguments view, because he doesn't want to also, he, like the pro-abort, he doesn't want to go there. He doesn't want to go to this is just a basic thing of rebellion against God for the gospel, because that's not his
It's a great point. A lot of these different problems in the pro-life movement are going to be connected. And so, the fact that Scott Klusendorf was up on stage, at G3 back in 2016 saying, we're okay to compromise with abortion because the Supreme Court has said from on high that no unborn children have the right to life. And therefore, we submit and we compromise and all that stuff. You get that, again, because you're not starting from a theological foundation, right? And so then, as you said, like, to defend that, if everyone knows abortion's murder, and if Scott Klusendorf knows that abortion is definitely mass murder, Holocaust, then how insane is it that he would say something like that and advocate for submitting to the Supreme Court, right? And so it's all connected. When you don't address it theologically at the root, you're going to be wrong in the way you address pro-abortion arguments. You're going to be addressing the completely wrong thing. You're not going to be addressing the sin and spiritual blindness at the root of it. Yeah. Then in the political sphere, you're going to be saying stuff that basically amounts to obey man and not God. Because again, you're not addressing it theologically. Because if you address it theologically, of course you obey God and not man. But it's not theological at the root, and therefore everything's wrong. Yeah. He's off a little bit in this. He's off a lot over here when all these little mistakes start to pile up. When you're wrong at the root, it's all messed up.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these pro-life apologists are very happy to leave a person in whatever condition they were in as long as they just adopt the opinion that abortion is wrong and they shouldn't do it. Like they'll be fine with that. I even ran into like some of that tension early on, or later on when I was working for Created Equal, where I'd be preaching the gospel and doing presuppositional apologetics and trying to evangelize people, all in the context of talking to people about abortion. And I'd be having these conversations and people would be changing their mind about abortion, but they'd also be getting the gospel. And there was kind of this view that it was sort of a distraction from what they were trying to do. Like, they're trying to just change the culture. If you change enough minds, we can get rid of abortion. It's a really weird, you can't segment off a worldview like that. Yeah. There's a worldview is going to have, there's going to be certain pathways that people are going to follow. If they adopt a certain premise, like, I came here because of random chance, there's no way they're going to also adopt the premise, I shouldn't kill my neighbor. Like, they are inevitably not going to go that way. Yeah. Inevitably, they're going to go to the logical conclusion, which is, I don't think my life matters. I don't think their life matters. I'm a nihilist. It doesn't matter if I die tomorrow. Like, that's the sort of logical conclusion of a worldview. And you can move somebody for a little bit of time, but it's not going to last if you haven't changed the worldview, if you haven't addressed what's going on underneath. Yeah, you see these videos, I think Live Action was doing, where they were highlighting getting someone to admit, okay, abortion is bad late term. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, you got this person to admit that abortion is bad late term, and you ran a video on YouTube and said, this is good.
But it's like most abortions don't happen late term, and that person doesn't think that abortion of an image bearer from the moment of conception is bad. It's not. You're not even really fighting the issue here, even in your framework. And I think it's just that fundamental root worldview issue is the only thing that has staying power. Because that person, even if you've convinced them through some kind of an argument where you've got someone in an argument, they've never committed an abortion themselves, but they think they hold the pro-abortion view because they think it's the smarter view. And then you beat them in an argument and then they leave going, you know what? It isn't the smarter view. Now I'm going to hold the smarter view, and that is consistent human rights or something, and I'm no longer pro-abortion. Well, that person, if they're not changed, they're going to have the excuse for an abortion whenever they're pregnant and it's unwanted, because you've not dealt with the fact that people do love themselves more than their children and will murder their children for themselves, which is as old as humanity. And like, again, just as we conclude this episode, we're getting back to the beginning here. This is a denial of a biblical understanding of man and the revelation of what God says about us to us so that he can redeem us. So I do want to say to Scott, like, I don't know if he's watching this or if he made it to this part of the show or whatever, but this is like, you can watch this and sort of like be angry and want to like argue that we're wrong. You want to play the persuasion game with us or with other people and say, these guys are wrong for this reason, this reason, this reason. You want to do what you do with us and say that we're bad actors, all that kind of stuff. Or you can watch it and go, you know what? I think what they're saying is actually true and is actually persuasive. Like, that there's a lot of good sense to what they're saying. And even though I've been doing this on this other foundation for a long time, I don't have to continue to do it that way. I can do this from a biblical, gospel-centered approach, and I can be a part of the abolition movement and bless the world by actually saying, listen, I did this and I said these things and they're wrong. Like, there's no reason that you can't get on Twitter or Facebook and say, I said this thing, and actually upon further thought, I have been persuaded that this is not an actual good biblical view. We're hating on you or attacking you out of some sort of, out of anything other than we think that this is not true and that you have a big platform and you're spreading untruths that are not only not true, but they're not helpful. This is not helpful. And you could be so very helpful. So don't bow up and, get your hurt or whatever and not listen to what we're saying. Listen to this stuff, assess it honestly, go in your prayer closet, do whatever you need to do to say, like, is this stuff true? We've known people who have opposed the abolition of abortion on various levels, and then kind of like, because they were hidden in Christ and the Holy Spirit was working on their hearts, they just opened their Bibles and they were like, I know I said all these evil things about abolitionists and said they were bad, no one should listen to them, but I think they're right. And so, we do this prayerfully. We know that it's possible that you see this or hear about this and that you watch it and you think about it. And we pray that, the Spirit of God would say, don't hate the messenger. Change with the message.
Yeah. And I think we want to be, so just viewing this podcast, you might think, okay, yeah, I see their case. I agree with them, but you still might not know what that ever looks like in practice. And we're going to be doing a lot more street level evangelism stuff, putting out videos of that sort of thing. But also we printed up this quadfold that is a really, really, really good gospel tract. Like, if you read the back of this, it's a really excellent just appeal to an unbelieving world to repent and put their faith in Christ. So pick up some of these tracts and pass them out. When you see these videos that go up, hopefully it encourages you to get active and go out and talk to people and actually try to engage, because this is a really excellent opportunity to share the gospel. I mean, I've had more conversations talking about the gospel when I'm talking to people about abortion than just in normal life. Like, when you're just at the grocery store or whatever, it's much harder to get to a conversation about the gospel with a random guy at the grocery store than it is with talking about abortion. People are like, oh, good and evil. Like, you're already at the heart of a big worldview conflict, and it's easy to get there.
Yeah.
So,
and as Sam said, the back is just kind of like a really good gospel presentation. It's not necessarily the back is just all about abortion. It's just sort of about the gospel. You know, he kind of does the abortion is murder. Everybody knows it, proves that point that it's an indisputable fact. And then, you know, it does have, you know, a image of an aborted human being in the middle. You know, this is murder. Stop suppressing the truth and unrighteousness. And then it has the gospel on the back. We do have a lot of these, and we'll continue to print them until the world runs out of paper. But we're also putting this on a sign, so you can get a 31 by 48 sign. And, you know, Sam was saying there, you go out and stand on a street, abortion is murder and everybody knows it. People are going to come up to you because like 1 in 4, 1 in 5, whatever people have murdered a child. And the sign's true. They know it. So when they see that you say everybody knows it, they're going to want to come try to justify their sin. They're going to want to come and try to debate you on the point, or tell you why their murder was justified and why you're wrong for taking that right from them. Yeah. So grab a sign. Also, as Sam mentioned, we are going to be doing this more. Our group is trying to go out, you know, at least 4 times a month as a group, try to go to different things. And we're going to try to be faithful to put up more videos. We've been putting up a lot of videos on TikTok.
Of street activism.
Street activism, yeah, not just the videos that we normally do, but and a lot of the kind of comments or messages that I've got are just from people that are just like, it's good to see this. It's a good example. And we do want people emulating, you know, everyone's going to kind of do it in different ways, but we do want people going out there confidently and boldly, knowing people are in sin, they're walking in darkness, and you're just there to be a light bearer for them, to tell them the truth. And so we're going to try to model that, and then hopefully start seeing people go out to the culture as much as maybe abolitionists were going out to the clinics. We need to go out to the culture. So we're going to be stressing that quite a bit and helping y'all to do it.
Right, and we're providing the resources with which you can do it. So this is a great thing to just kind of begin the conversation, and you say, hello, you know, ma'am or sir, have you gotten one of these? Get talking. We want tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of these to go out into the culture, which, again, presses the conscience that they know abortion's murder, provides a gospel presentation on the back. This is a really good resource. You can go to store.freethestates.org and pick these up. You can go to store.freethestates.org to pick up this drop card, which kind of has the same message and goes to a URL, which is on the back, which has a gospel presentation. Pick it up in the form of a bumper sticker. And as Russell said, it's going to be on a big 31 by 48 vinyl sign for street activism as well very soon.
Yeah. We should probably put this on a shirt. You know, abortion's murder, everybody knows.
Put it everywhere, yeah.
Just wear it next time you're getting your hair cut, which I need to do. Go get your hair cut wearing a shirt that says abortion is murder and everybody knows it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
that lady's got the scissors.
Maybe people will
be choosy on where you should.
I was gonna say maybe people will accuse me of whatever being soft for this being my role, but that's actually literally the one place I do not wear abolitionist T-shirts is to get my hair cut.
Yeah,
but literally anywhere else. But that's my one place where I'm like, I don't know.
I'm not. Hey,
James is trusting in his chariots.
Yeah, you're so faithless, James. I've done it. I've literally been in the parking lot.
I have one time, yeah,
of a place, and I was wearing a abortion is sin, the wages of sin is death shirt, and I was just kind of like, yeah.
Even in conversation, every barber I've ever gone to, I've always said, oh yeah, I work for an organization that's trying to abolish abortion in Oklahoma. Everyone.
Really?
You guys don't do that?
Well, no, I mean, I'll do that. But what's funny is I changed that shirt into like, I think another one that was just sort of like abolitionist were called fanatics and told to keep their religion to themselves.
Yeah.
So it's just something about like the lady with the scissors looking down. I'm just like, this is a person who may have done this actual scissor to the neck thing to a child. Huh. Yeah. But no, we need to be all that kind of joking to the side. Yeah. We need to be much more bold and, on our sleeves.
Yeah.
about our views, and so we are going to be putting a lot more material out. But the joke about them until the world runs out of paper, these are actually hard for us to get.
It's actually funny. I just thought about this. There's Adam Cochran probably wears these kinds of shirts while he's cutting people's hair. So you guys thinking about taking off the shirts to get your hair cut, and he's putting on the shirt to give people haircuts.
He's shaming us, man. He's really making us feel bad, Sam. I'm gonna put an abortion image on a shirt and go get my hair cut tomorrow, just to prove I'm not scared. I'm scared. But anyway, if you're watching this and you do want this, I would suggest going and buying it. We have an order coming in, but it's not a massive order, and came in. Mm-hmm.
Today.
Our printer actually has been telling us as of late, like, well, I can't really get a hold of as much paper as usual. I don't know why, but there's apparently lots of paper shortages. So we try to keep this in stock as much as we can, but it does run out. Do order it, and I would assume the same goes for signs and bumper stickers and drop cards. So get the stuff and get it out as quickly as you can.
And so on that note, again, all this Abortion Murder and Everybody Knows It materials is on the store, but also on the store are the T-shirts that all three of us are wearing today. So you can get also T-shirts, which we've talked about are good for wearing and starting conversations.
Never wound a snake, kill it. Harriet Tubman T-shirt that we got on.
Yep. Which is also the T-shirt, which is the model of the artwork, which we are giving away for the month of August. So for those of you who don't know, we give away a piece of Russell's original art to one person who is a monthly supporter financially of Free the States. And this month.
So I've probably drawn a snake with its head cut off too many times just to get the one that I wanted. And so I've actually given away an art piece that had the full never wound a snake, kill it. But that snake on that drawing was not the one that ended up on the shirt. I didn't like that snake, and so I had to redraw the snake. And so this is the actual art that was used for this shirt. Okay, so this is a pen and ink drawing, and you'll notice that it just says, "Kill it, Harriet Tubman," which is an abbreviation of her quote, but there's a snake with its head chopped off in a pile of blood, which did not make it onto the shirt. But this is an original pen and ink. In the instance that we abolish abortion and I get martyred or something, this could be worth something. At least something. So we're able to do the things that we do because of supporters like yourself, and we take all of the monthly supporters, we put their name in a bowl, and we draw out every 4 episodes or so. Somebody wins art, and then we send it to them as soon as it's scanned and everything like that. So if you would like to participate in our drawing to win a drawing, please become a monthly supporter of Free the States. And I guess here in a couple of episodes, we'll be giving that piece away, and we'll be continuing to give away more and more art. So eventually we're going to run out of art, and I'm going to be like, well, we're giving away, James will write an email for you of your choice if you win. Sam will edit you and make you look smarter than you are on TikTok.
To connect all that together. So if you become a donor at freethestates.org/donate, you also get a 15% discount code to the store. So you can get all of this materials at a discounted rate. So please do all of that. Become a donor, pick up some materials to hand out in your community, because yes, we need your support, but we also need you guys to be active in your own communities as well. We don't just want to be the only people doing this and say, come support us. We want you to support us. We also want you to do it in your own communities, and we want to help you do that. And that's why we create these sorts of materials. So please become a monthly donor at freethestates.org/donate. Please pick up materials at store.freethestates.org and be an abolitionist.
And pass this along to Scott Klusendorf.
Yes, that too.
And, continue to help us so we can get these views out, because we think these views are true and they will change the world.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that has been another episode of the Liberator podcast, where we're committed to being as harsh as truth and as uncompromising as justice. See you next week.